But once you begin to study the other religions, you discover something very interesting, and that is that there are shared propositions of the different religions that point to core truths. One scholar described it very well. It's sort of like you have a mountain, and at the top of the mountain you have God, but no one can see him. And you have little rivers of knowledge pouring down, and some of the rivers may begin high, waterfalls may begin higher or lower, and you can look at the different religions as human attempts, flawed, to apprehend the same reality. These attempts will disagree on certain particulars, but agree on many fundamentals. So I don't see the other religions as wrong. I see all of us in a human enterprise to try to gain knowledge that seems beyond the reach of the empirical.
Ian, is your answer complimentary?
I completely agree, but I wanted to expand on it just a little bit, and that is to say that it's not a problem for Christians that the idea that there is a universal religious impulse, which we agree on. I mean, there is basically a universal religious impulse in humans, because what Christians say is, if there is a God with whom we can have a meaningful relationship, then we would expect precisely that everyone would have such a religious impulse built into them. And so when we look around and we see different religious viewpoints, we recognize that the universality of that. So I don't think
But do you think the other religions have got it wrong?
Well, I mean, got it wrong seems to me a rather unhelpful way to look at it. I mean, it's pretty direct. Of course, you know, Christians think that Jesus was the Son of God.
But the reason I put it that way is that I think that your opponent's point, and that the questioner was bringing up, is that it's an accident of particularly in your case, the accident of your birth.
It happens not to be the case for me. I didn't grow up in a Christian family, so it's just so.
All right, Michael Sherman.
Just clarify the point just briefly. So you just eloquently described the geography of religious beliefs of India. When Lawrence goes to lecture in India, he doesn't discover that they do physics differently in India. They do physics everywhere around the world the same. There's just one physics. There's not, Indian physics and Australian physics and so forth. There's just one physics. That's the larger point.
You're right, and that's because science limits itself to asking questions of very particular type, to asking how questions rather than why questions, and asking questions about the reproducible behavior of the world and so on and so forth. So yes, of course, science is universal, and that's one of the most attractive things about it, and that's why I'm a scientist. But that doesn't mean it has a grip on everything.
But it's more than universal, it's changes. And I think, Dinesh pointed out that science was wrong, but the fact that we've changed our minds gives science progress, different
right down
from
in the
religion.
Front row here. If you could stand up, ma'am. Thanks.
My name is Jane, and I'm an Upper West Sider. And I find it interesting that we have a debate here about, does science refute God? And my question is posed to both sides, for and against the motion. I've yet to hear anyone really give us a clear description of what they think God is. We keep throwing around this term God,
well,
God,
this side
God.
has made clear. You don't really need the question to this side, I don't think, unless I misunderstand your question.
I'm hearing religion. I'm hearing religion, different religions, different beliefs. But I need to hear some kind of opinion or an argument for what your God is. How do you define your God? How do you define your God?
Let's do it very quickly in Hutchinson.
I thought I'd been pretty clear about the God that I was talking about, and I said that it was the God of Christianity.
And for me, God, the God I was talking about, for which there's no evidence, is the fact that there's intelligent guiding purpose to the universe. That's a vague deism. Because that's the most charitable God I can imagine. Obviously, the God of the major world's religions is obviously in contradiction with everything we know.
But that's the God you're saying doesn't exist.
But that's the God I'm talking about.
Okay, let's move on. Sir.
Hi, Matthew Tyers. I don't have any particularly exciting qualifications of being here, I'm sorry to report. My question is to Dinesh, and it relates to his point about ancient Hebrews and also his latter reference that we're instilled with some form of morality. So aren't these guys the same guys who, for example, thought that it was okay to stone a woman to death, that homosexuality was a mortal sin?
I don't want to get into a discussion.
The point that I'm trying to make is, were these the guys that we should really have listened to all along in any instance?
It's really off the topic of the clash I feel between science and God. So I would with respect want to move on to another question. Sir. Yeah.
Good evening, Baruch Gelfand. I want to address Mr. Krauss as far as the likeliness or unlikeliness of scientific event. In order to say that the likeliness of universe came in from nothing without intelligent design, you have to throw out the basic laws of conservations. You have to imagine that the universe is infinite at the beginning, at the very first nanosecond of creation. Isn't it easier, and isn't it more likely physically to assume that that first particle, the mass, the matter, the energy, the intellect, is the same as the mass, the energy, the matter, the intellect of the whole universe is?
Okay, I think I can interpret your question.
I need, if you do, I didn't quite understand. So can you?
And if I misrepresent it, you can tell me. But I think you're trying to say that somehow, in the creation of the universe, we have to violate conservation laws and we have to assume things that are unreasonable.
That the creation of the universe violates the laws of nature.
No.
Oh, well, I was trying to make it sensible, but okay.
I'm sorry. No, what I'm just trying to say is...
I can give you 10 more seconds to
Okay, all I was trying to say is, in order to say that it was created from nothing, we have to violate the conservation laws.
And it's a great question. In
Without
order to say
design.
it came from nothing, you appear to have to spout nonsense. But the amazing thing, which is what's worth celebrating, is that we've discovered, for example, that you can have a whole universe full of 100 billion galaxies, each containing 100 billion stars, and the total energy of the universe can be zero. And in fact, when we go out and measure the total energy of our universe, it's consistent with zero. You don't have to violate anything to get something from nothing, and that was a surprise to scientists, but it's the case. And it didn't have to be the case.
All right, I want to move on, and I want some again, and then I'm not that smart a guy situation. I just hear we're a big zero just there.
Yeah, it's a big zero. We are.
I don't think I like that very much, right in the center there. The scarf, please. I will.
Can you explain the creation of an orchid? And as scientists, do you believe that you will ever be in a place where you will be able to create an orchid?
Why do you feel that an orchid? Are you saying that an orchid needs to be a godlike creation?
I just think it's just a really simple question, and
we have good answers to that. I mean,
okay.
The evolution of flowering plants is there in coevolution with insects. There's a reason why orchids and other flowers look like insects, to mimic insects, so that the real insects try to mate with them and move the pollen around. And so what we perceive as aesthetically beautiful or so on, of course, looks very different to the eyeball of an insect. It has a different worldview in that sense because evolution selected for it to do a certain thing. Otherwise, it wouldn't look that way.
But we could actually create one.
I just want to clarify, were you referring to the beauty of an orchid or just the existence of an orchid?
The existence, and if they think that they can ever create one.
Yeah, in fact, actually, I would say...
Lawrence Krauss.
And it's scary, and you might not like it. But the universe isn't here so you could like it. I know, so I'm going to tell you something that I think is likely. In fact, my friend Craig Venter would create organisms by putting together the appropriate genome of those organisms. And I suspect, for better or worse, we'll be able to put together, molecule by molecule, the genome of something that will reproduce and produce an orchid. We'll have life where there wasn't life before. That is scary, and we have to understand what we're doing when we're not yet capable of doing that, but we will be one day. And unless we accept that possibility, we won't be able to, as a society, determine what constraints we should put on ourselves so we have a sensible policy. But we will do it.
Need some morality on that one. I want to move on. Right down the front here, please. Would you mind standing up? Thanks.
Hi, I'm Lorelai. So quick question for either side. What would change your mind to go to the reverse?
What would change your mind?
Yes.
How could the other guys convince you?
Or,
I think,
right,
Lawrence, you've answered that a bunch of
Large
times.
cash deposit in a Swiss bank under my name. $10 million.
The same thing that's caused me to change my mind
Lawrence
about
Krauss.
all the times I've been wrong, and I've been wrong many more times than Dinesh, I'm sure. A single shred of evidence. That's all.
Other side.
You know, I'm not even sure I could be persuaded unless we change the meaning of what science is. Because, coming back to the previous question, how would you measure the beauty of an orchid scientifically? I think, really, science sets itself out in a way to fail. And don't forget, the motion is science refutes God. Not that, there is no God, but that science refutes God.
Well, in a way, we do measure beauty. The marketplace of people that buy flowers essentially determine how the breeders create them based on the ones that most people find really beautiful. That there actually is a measurable way for that.
All right. That was a great question, by the way. Thanks a lot. On this side.
Hi, my name's Mike. I live on the Upper West Side, but I'm not from here, obviously. This is a question to Ian and Dinesh. Is there an observed phenomena for which the religious explanation has progressed ahead of the scientific explanation in terms of plausibility?
I'll answer that.
Dinesh D'Souza.
If you look at the Bible, it is not a science manual. It doesn't claim to make scientific proofs. In fact, what's interesting about the Bible is it doesn't make proofs at all. The Bible doesn't even attempt to prove God. It doesn't try to prove that Jesus is the Son of God. It asserts things. Why? Because for the most part, what the Bible is doing is it's in the province of revelation. Now, you'll notice that neither of us have ever in this debate appealed to the Bible to support any argument that we've made. We have argued on the basis of reason alone. Now, the Bible does make certain claims about the world and about man. So, for example, the Bible doesn't say that God made man out of nothing, but it does say that God made the universe out of nothing. It says that it made man out of some other stuff. Now, so the Bible says God created the world and God created man, but the Bible doesn't say how. So, that's where science comes in. Science can, and the scientific answer often changes, attempt to give explanations that actually don't refute the Bible. You could refute the Bible by showing that actually the universe has always existed and doesn't require any explanation whatsoever. You could show that God didn't make man out of the clay of the ground, but as Richard Dawkins said, aliens brought man from outer space. So you can actually refute propositions that are stated in the Bible. But I think Ian's right that no central proposition has ever been refuted, let alone today.
Lawrence has had his head in his hand listening.
Well,
to this
you don't really want to go here, Dinesh. So I would say, for example, we refute the Bible by arguing that creating day and night before you create the sun is pretty silly.
Well, Lawrence, in that case, here's the problem. You have a fundamentalist reading of the Bible that is maybe subscribed to by 3% of Christians and 100% of atheists.